Morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone globally. Firstly, a very big thank you to Wholesale Investor for inviting me to share the topic, investment opportunities in data companies, the new goal. I'll be covering on three key topics today. Firstly, looking at investment trends of the past few years and how has markets really been doing. Secondly, we'll be zooming down into the last 12 months. How has COVID really impacted the markets and how are we doing? And lastly, we're looking at the next 12 months, the next 24, or very much into the future. What might be key opportunities that we can explore and look into? Without further ado, let's jump into our first topic of investment trends. If we look between the period of 1990 to the year 2019 and study a few different markets, we're going to see that the US, specifically the S&P 500, has been increasingly accelerating at an unprecedented rate when they were sub 500 before the 1990s, all the way to surpassing 3,000 in the year 2019. Looking at some of the few key crises that we have experienced, we're able to see how the equity markets been performing, underperforming, or doing really well over the last number of years. We can then take a look into Germany, DAX 30, where the market's been increasingly accelerating equally well, as well as Canada. Markets like Japan or the UK, on the opposite end, has not been performing that well over the last number of years. Zooming a little bit closer towards the year 2020 itself, we are still able to see comparatively in the US market that the market's still increasingly accelerating, even though we are fundamentally as an economy not doing that well. What's actually happening in all these markets? Other markets, whether is it in Hong Kong, Singapore, EU, Australia, or Japan, has all equally been increasing as well. So if we zoom into some of the casualties and winners in the year 2020 itself, due to COVID pandemic, there are large companies that has actually went bankrupt. And on the left-hand side, we look at 10 industries with the most amount of bankruptcy filings just in the year 2020. F&B has been impacted greatly. The construction and supplies, real estate, healthcare and medical, oil and gas and retail spaces as well. Specifically, companies very much customer front-facing that relies on customer visiting their retail store or interacting with them in order for their business to operate. We look at the Hertz Corporation, a company that's worth more than $24 billion that went bankrupt just in a matter of months during COVID-19. Amongst a whole list of other enterprises that are huge and companies that we have a household name for that has actually went down under. Yet on the opposite end, there are companies that actually changed their business model and transform in the year 2020. And these companies do much better than they would have if they didn't change. And some companies performing even better than their existing business model. We see that the retail e-commerce sales on a worldwide region, with Asia Pacific contributing a huge amount, and e-commerce stated to continue booming and growing for the years to come. Just in the year 2020 itself, looking at close to 18.4% growth. There are companies that has explored how are they able to repurpose the production or looking at enhancing their business model, or exploring the path of a digital journey to digitize themselves. Specific companies that leverage upon the trends that COVID has hit. So, for example, we look very much at Boohoo. People are buying more homeware, and hence they move their focus very much to selling working attire tops for customers to look smart on Zoom calls. Or Toniska, where from a traditional way of hiring a trainer and working out in the gym, they now have transformed the way people exercise, looking at 88% growth just during lockdown itself. Or Stitching Story, where stitching online and teaching people how to stitch through an online platform has shown an 800% increase in sales during lockdown. These are companies that are not as large as others like Louis Vuitton or AirAsia, that they themselves have very much successfully digitized as well, or look into enhanced business models within the COVID period. So looking back very much at what has happened over the last 12 months, where the equity markets has continued to grow, and there are companies that are huge that has failed. Yet there are other companies that has leveraged upon the COVID period to make a difference and to digitize and come out stronger. The key question to ask really is what is to come in the next 12 months. And to look at technology trends, sometimes to move into the future, we need to take one step back and look at the past. We study the last 200, 300 years or so. We're able to identify that there are multiple magnitude of technology breakthroughs in each different era. Whether it's from the phone to the personal computer to the mobile phone. With each technology breakthrough, it brings forth massive amounts of opportunities for people to capitalize on and for people to make money. And one of the key things that we have identified, in addition to the rapid evolvement of technology, is that today, more and more so, people are adopting technology much faster. If we take a study of the number of years where certain key inventions were adopted by 25% of the US population, we're able to see that it took 46 years for electricity to be adopted, followed by 16 years for the personal computer. And more recently, with Pokemon Go, it just took 19 days. Can you imagine that? 19 days for 25% of the US population to adopt this key technology or application. We today are living in a world that's accelerating, interconnected, and we're able literally to reach out to the whole world through a click of a button. With this, we also study over the last 20 years of internet giants, from a period of 1998 all the way over the course of the next 20 years, what has really changed for the top 20 internet giants? And some of the key findings that we've identified, if we break it down by a 5-year basis, between 1998 to the year 2003, more than 30% of the top 20 companies have shifted hands. And more so, as we move forward each 5 years, and we look back, 20 years later, there's less than 3 companies that was in the existing list in 1998 that's still around in the top 20 list in 2018. So what does this really tell us? It tells us that if we do not constantly remain relevant, if we do not constantly embark upon technology changes, we would be left behind. So looking back very much to the trends and what history has shown us, the next question really is what's going to happen in the future. So we today are really in an era of data explosion. 90% of the world's data was created in just the last 3 years. And because of this, a lot of companies are ill-equipped to handle this amount of data explosion. In fact, a lot of companies still have no idea the amount of data that's being created every single day. Companies that are ill-equipped today are facing more and more issues. And let's just take 3 use cases as an example. $600 billion of loss due to online frauds and scams just in the year 2017 alone. We are living in an increasingly less trustful world. Every single day, every single second, each person is creating 1.7 megabytes of data. We are living in an increasingly noisier world. And there's an increase in cyber attacks of more than 600% just in 2017 alone. We've estimated $6 trillion, which will be lost, forecasted in the year 2021. We are living in an increasingly insecure world. More so due to a COVID pandemic and lockdown. Not only have we faced the previous 3 issues, we today are seeing an accelerated trend due to a few key circumstances. The rise of cloud computing. Cloud computing spending has rose more than 37% to $29 billion just in the first quarter of 2020. There's an increased amount of data usage, where the usage on broadband data has increased by 47% alone just during the lockdown, to an average usage of more than 400 over gigabytes per user per household. And the demand for digital transformation is ever increasing, valued at close to $1 trillion in the year 2020, growing at a rate of 18.5% year on year till reach $2.74 trillion by the year 2026. COVID indeed has driven an accelerated trend for adoption and digitization of both companies, business models, and users at large. So what happens to companies who fail to protect their data or fail to utilize their data itself? What's the impact very much on them? Loss in business, on average, is looking at $40 million for a million data records lost for data breach. Some crazy interesting facts is that it takes about 200 days for a data breach to be detected and another 165 days to contain the breach for a survey that was done on Fortune 500 companies. Can you imagine 1 year just identify that there was a breach and to contain that breach? How much sensitive data would already have been lost? And loss in value for companies that are listed when they disclose their data breach, on average, is 7.27% on their market cap. For a billion-dollar company, that's a huge loss in terms of their equity capital price. How about failure to utilize data? On average, it's a loss in business of 15 to 25%, 25% less revenue, and 10% more cost. Imagine being able to increase your revenue by an additional 25% or to reduce your cost by another 10%. How much would that be in absolute terms to you as a business? So, looking at companies today that are addressing these few key issues in the areas of data trust, in the areas of data clarity, or the areas of data security. If you were to take a sample of some of the companies that might have listed or raised their funds or have performed in the stock market, what would they actually look like? Companies that are riding on this trend that has really focused on the data area of technology. One use case example, of course, was Snowflake, where they are a data cloud company powered by advanced data platform providing software as a service to the clients. They raised $3.4 billion just not too long ago, making it one of the largest software IPO in history, even amidst this current COVID climate. There's CrowdStrike, where their stock price increased close to 5 times over the last 1 year to more than a market capitalization of $48 billion. Imagine if you were an investor in that just 1 year ago. Databricks, more private company that's raised more than $1 billion in funding from a few prominent corporate investors, which value them at more than $28 billion. These few companies focusing very much on the data aspect of things and doing really well as more data is created and more companies need to protect themselves in the areas of data. So what would we really look at for the next 10 years? Yes, we are today in a COVID pandemic situation. And over the course of the next 12 months, we're able to see that there's opportunities, there's investment opportunities that we can invest into that will make investors money if you make the right bet. But after COVID, post-COVID, what will be the opportunities or companies that will outlast COVID and continue to do well? If we take a look at some of the key trends around data, if we talk about the 4 V's of big data, from volume perspective, where today, that's more than 2.5 quintillion bytes of data created. That's like 18 zeros. More and more data will continue to be created from a volume perspective. The second V, in the areas of velocity, where just looking at the New York Stock Exchange, there's more than 1 terabyte of trade information happening during each trade session. How more so will this increase in the next number of years? If we look at a variety in the different forms of data itself, 30 billion pieces of content are shared on Facebook every month. In 2014, it's anticipated that it's more than 420 million wearables itself, just focused in the areas of health monitors. In the area of veracity or uncertainty of data, this is costing US economy around $3.1 trillion a year itself. If you're looking at companies that is able to address some of these key issues and trends that will continue to increase and accelerate, it might be something that's interesting to look into. Areas of blockchain, there are more and more enterprises adopting blockchain technology in the next 12 months. And more so after the next 12 months, looking at blockchain as trust by itself. We're able to see that multiple different large enterprises cross multi-locale, cross multi-industry, are looking at multi-use cases, from banking and finance to supply chain to healthcare, insurance, energy business, real estate. More and more so, they're looking at how they're able to implement blockchain for trust, for data trust, so that we can better have assurance over the data that exchange hands across organizations, across applications, and across people for years to come. And one of the key trends globally as well is that if we look very much at government sectors, more and more so, the central banks are looking at how are they able to launch their own digital currency. Of course, with China leading the way, incorporating in their blockchain services network, as well as the digital currency electronic payments. Imagine in the next number of years, there's a high chance that enterprises who would like to deal with China would probably need to integrate towards their current existing systems just in order to trade or to operate in China itself. More so in the US, we have heard of the Facebook project Libra, where they're looking very much at a simple global payment systems and financial infrastructure that empower billions of people. A bit closer to home in Singapore, where the Money Authority of Singapore has looking at multiple different initiatives where they're able to then launch their central bank digital currency. And of course, our national carrier, Singapore Airlines. So companies that have really succeeded in areas of digital transformation, in the areas of technology, have been doing really well. This might be one of the key sectors to look into. And specifically, companies that handles data. In my personal view, for enterprises and companies that would like to future-proof themselves for the years to come, there'll be 3 core technologies that will be critical to their success. Blockchain for data trust, AI for data clarity, and cybersecurity very much for peace of mind and data security. And I personally feel that all 3 core technologies are integral to each other. Yes, today we're able to place some forms of data on blockchain. We might have information that's highly trusted. But if we do not know how to use this data, if we have no means of being able to pull out actionable insights from the data we have, then the data will not be of much use by itself. Or today, if we run our data through a really sophisticated AI engine, and we are now able to pull out a lot of sensitive data, but if we did not protect our data and hackers get their hands onto our sensitive data, that would be highly detrimental to the company itself. By implementing blockchain, AI, and cybersecurity, we are really very much able to look at how companies are able to better protect themselves. We today are living in an era where data is the starting point and not the end. If we look for investment opportunities in the next number of years and for the future, that is past COVID, that is pandemic proof, data might really be the new goal. On a separate note, for companies who would like to find out how ready are they to adopt blockchain or cybersecurity, we do have a blockchain readiness questionnaire or cybersecurity readiness questionnaire that you'll be able to take that allows you to better see where are you on the chart of being able to top these 2 core technologies. As a closing note, this is Lim from Singapore, from Vision Group, and wishing you investment opportunities looking at data companies where data might really be the new goal. Thank you.